What have we done here? Oh, it's the clip that's going on there. Right, let me just make it so. That's better. The clip on the iPad stand hangs over the front of my iPad, so you can't see me, which is a little bit of a pain. Right, what's going on with these gloves? I really overslept this morning, so I'm like going, why on earth did I choose 9:15 as being the time that I was going to start this? So yeah, like proper bleary going on. Is that? Let's turn the volume off on that. I think it's that's making noises, which is annoying me. Right, we are going to dye this month's seasonal changes pack. I feel like dyeing this and going back to bed. But no, we will get it done. I'm a little bit disappointed this month because my favourite didn't get chosen. I was really hoping we were going to do some reds and green Christmassy colours, but I thought I kind of tried to skew it by putting 2 red and green options in there, and you still all went for the peaches and the pinks, so which I'm a little bit sad about, but never mind. If that is what happens in a democracy, if sometimes you have to deal with the result not being the one that you wanted. Right, I need to adjust the cameras so that you can actually see what's going on the table. I need to go and grab some jugs and syringes and everything, so we shall get started very shortly. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we also want some water because we have got lots of pale colours to dye this month. Let me pull up my colour picture. So for those of you who didn't have a look at the colour pictures online of what the choices were, this is the one that we chose, which is, I called it Winter Sunrise. I don't think I've used that as a colourway name before. There's times when I've discovered, looked and just gone, oh yeah, that's the reason, that's the same name that I've tried to use about 6 times in the past. I'm not a very imaginative namer of things. Something I really struggle with. Right, let's move, sorry, we're tangled up in some fibre on the other side. Let's move you down and round. Okay, wonderful. You're now in shot with the table. Let's move you down like that. You're probably not going to get my head, but never mind. I don't think you want to see that anyway. So let's get cracking. I need my notebook and a pen so I can write down the recipes. These will probably be in the shop on Monday, because tomorrow is the 30th, Sunday's the 1st. So yeah, Monday. I would have thought this first batch will go into the shop. As ever, once they sell out, don't worry, because there will be more coming up throughout the rest of December. December will be a bit of a shorter work month, purely just because at some point I'll take some time off, which I haven't really done for a long time. I'm kind of May. I didn't really have a summer holiday this year, so I'm kind of starting to feel like I kind of need to not be rushing around like a mad lunatic, and not be constantly kind of wrangling and managing everything. Let me just move that down a little bit so you can see a little bit more of the table. That's better. Okay, we will get cracking. I'm going to start off with the colour that I know how to mix, which is going to be this salmon colour that's going on here. But in order to dye that salmon colour, actually I need this orange, and because it's cold, it's gone all clumpy. So I'm just going to need to warm that back up a little bit so that I have dye that is usable. Okay. So I'm just going to pop that in the microwave just to re-warm. Some of the dyes in colder temperature, they sort of start to just do slightly weird and odd things. So, sorry, you're going to have a microwave whirring away in the background. So I'm not going to dye that one first because I need to wait for my orange to warm up. We will go back and we will dye these purpley colours here. So, as ever, when we're thinking about these colour palettes, this one is the darkest shade. That's going to be a mid-tone. That's going to be a mid-tone. These two are going to be the lightest colours. I'm going to start off with that purple mid-tone, seeing as how I haven't got my orange. For that mid-tone, I'm going to use some of my grey dye. And I'm also going to use some red, and it's going to have a tiny little bit of brown in it just to keep it more on the warm side and stop it being too cool a purple, because the other purple that's in this colour palette is also quite cool. So let's have some grey, some red. At the moment that's equal parts of grey and red. The grey that I use is blue toned, so therefore when I mix it with the red I end up with a purple. Let's reach that out, so we've got that there. And then I want some brown, but I don't want as much of I don't need a full measure of it. I'm going to need slightly less, otherwise it's going to be too murky. So I'm just going to pull some dye off and then just use my measuring cylinders to give me a smaller quantity. I'm looking at that, and I think that's come out too red. Let's have a look. Before I start adding brown into it, there's no point if I haven't got the base colour right. Let's have a little bit of water in there. There we go. So you can see. Yeah. So that's come out closer to the colour tone of the second colour, the darkest colour that I want. It's much too red toned more than anything else. So I'm going to put that to one side. We're going to go back to the same amount of grey as I used previously, but I don't need as much red going in. So instead of 25 red, let's roughly half that. Well, not roughly, let's half it. And that's going to give us something which is going to be more blue toned, not quite so that's a little bit more like it. Okay, so those were the previous versions. Can you see how they have gone really, really red? And then just by using less red in there, I've got closer to something which is more of the purple that I want. I'm still going to just put the tiniest little bit of brown in it though, just because I want to make sure that it's kind of a more earthy toned colour. So let's have, just to give it a little bit more complexity, so hardly any at all, just the tiniest splash, just to knock the edge of that brown, the edge of that sort of primary feeling from it back just a tiny little bit. It's not going to look vastly different. Excuse me. So that's the version with the brown in versus the version that didn't have the brown in. So it's not changed it dramatically, it's just made it maybe a little bit more interesting. Okay, let's do the other pale purple first. And I think what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to go for, do I want to take one of my purples and modify it? I think I am. That's probably the route I'm going to go down. I'm just deciding which purple it is that I want, whether it is the, let's see what this one decides to give us today. This one might be right actually. So I do keep a few like pre-mixed dyes in stock that I tend to then alter slightly. So that's this purple here. Okay, so you can see it's got a much cooler tone than the original, than the other version, and it's probably going to be about right for what we want. What I'm not sure is if I want a full 25 milliliter measure of it, because I really would like to make sure that I have got light and dark contrast going on in this, and I think that's just going to be a little bit too much. So I'm probably just going to take out a smaller amount of that dye, and then I'll dilute it down with water just so I can spread it around. happily. So we're going to have just the 10 of you, and that's going to make us a really, really pale lilac-y colour. So I'm kind of turning up the contrast a little bit in comparison to the inspiration picture, just to make sure that we've got enough variety with what's going on. Okay, let's do the other dark purple next. So by happy chance, I probably ended up with something that's quite close to what I want for that really dark purple, but I'm going to use more dye to make it darker. Let's just increase you up a little bit, just so occasionally you can see my head. So I'm just going to use more dye in that. So we're going to go for 1, 2, 1. Red, and then let's see what shade we've got. So that looks really, really dark in there, but bearing in mind that we're spreading this dye out normally on the fibre, and there was not going to be anywhere near so much as it, but I like the colour of it. But I'd just like to I'd like to make it even darker still. I'd sort of like it to be more shadowy. So I'm going to grab some black. So my black is purple toned anyway, so it's going to kind of match the colour palette of everything that we've got going on. I don't want to overdo it. I'd just like to darken it down a little bit more. I went through my syringes earlier this week and got rid of all of the ones that no longer actually pulled up dye. Write that down, which has made this whole process an awful lot less frustrating. Okay. So yeah, so I'm well aware that probably on screen, just like that, just looks like it's really, really dark. It is very definitely a dark purple. It's not going to be so dark once we put it onto fibre. I'm not going for it being super, super saturated in colour for this pack. It's all it's a little bit muted. They're not quite nice soft colours. Right, let me see whether my orange has decided to behave itself. It has. That's just all. It's just re-dissolved the dye. So I'm just going to put it back into its measuring bottle. Just going to give it a good shake around. Hopefully that's done the trick for us. Okay, we will be fine. Right, let me pull off some of that orange, because that's going to be our basis for the next 2 peachy colours. So I've done all the purples. What I'm looking for now is the colours that are going to be the salmon, and then like the sort of almost bruisey sort of terracotta kind of vibe. Let's have you. So weirdly enough, this salmon colour that's on here, which is that one, you might think, oh, start with red. When I start with red, I then have to start to add lots of yellow to take down the red tones, to take it more towards being peach, which then starts to get tricky when I'm not wanting to use a vast amount of dye, because as well as adding red and yellow, I also need to do something to stop it being orange, which is usually adding some sort of brown or black into there. And by the time I've done that, I've got a greater volume of dye than I actually want for making these pale colours. So to make these salmony peachy colours, I nearly always start with orange, which of course is red and yellow, but it's just that it's already pre-mixed. And then to make that peachy colour, sorry, that salmony colour, we're going to use some black in there. Have 10 of that. And then let's go for 2 of you. Okay, dilute it down with some water, and it seems like the most unpromising way to create a colour mix, because that orange is just so overpoweringly sort of, yeah, almost fluorescent kind of orange. It's really, really in your face. But as soon as you put the black into it, that dirty spoon, I've just ripped that everywhere. Let's have a look. Okay, you see how that knocks that down a little bit. This, I think, is going to be closer to what I want for the bottom shade. So I think I've put, so that had 10 of the orange and a tiny little bit, and I've put red down. I don't mean red, I mean black. Okay, so this is our terracotta-y colour. I think that one's just about right, kind of as it is actually. I'm not going to change that one around. The only thing I wish is that it was slightly darker, so what I might do is just add, because I want it to be different enough in tonal value to the very pale colour. So I'm just going to add a tiny little bit more, just to make it so it's a darker colour, not that one that's purple. One. There we go. So I've just put more of the same dyes in, just to make it a stronger colour, because that was originally going to be my salmon colour, but it's just come out slightly more muted than I would like. Right, now let's give this other salmon shade a try. So I'm going to make this much paler. Right. 5 of you. This is the trouble when you start making very pale colours, is that it starts to get to the point that you can't measure out any smaller quantities of dye. Don't want brown. Brown doesn't work in there. It's going to have to be black. But I'm feeling this is going to have, so 5 and 1. And let's put some red in there just to pinken it up a little bit. Or do I want, rather than red, we're going to go for some of the really vibrant pink, just to properly jazz this colour up a little bit. So 5 orange, 1 black, because I just like this colour to just have that kind of pinky feel that's in the colour palette that we sort of haven't really got just yet. So, and it's like cooking with salt. Start off slow, you can add more. Let's put some water in there so we can see where we're at. Okay, so that's the colour we've ended up with. Let me have a look. Normally I'd be tempted to say I'm going to put some yellow in there, but I'm a bit scared we're ending up, these 2 colours within this palette are very close in colour and in tonal value. So because I'm quite happy with the colour I've got for that shade, and because it's verging towards orange, it gives us nice contrasts with these purples. I'm tempted to make this one a little bit pinker in tone than it is in the actual image. And what that's going to do is it's just going to give us that little bit more warmth going on, and it gives me more variety of what's going on. My mum is ringing me for some reason, which she doesn't normally do. So I'm going to put this onto fibre absolutely as normal. Come back and find out what I end up doing with this. So I just need to answer this.